If you're thinking about buying your first electric car, there are a few things I'd seriously consider before spending any money. Now, some of these are the exact same thing you would look at when buying a normal car. You still want to think about reliability, service history, practicality, and whether you actually like driving it. So I'm not going to spend time talking about optional extras, like leather seats or panoramic roofs. Instead, I want to focus on the things that are a little different with an EV. Start with your lifestyle, not the car. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people will make, is starting with the car instead of their lifestyle. People often ask, what's the best EV? But I don't think that's the right question. The better question is, what's the best EV for me? How far do you actually drive most days? Can you charge at home? Do you regularly drive hundreds of miles? Is this replacing your only car? Or is it going to be a second car? Those answers will probably narrow down the choices far more than looking at battery sizes or range figures. You might not need as much range as you think. When I bought my first Renault Zoe, it had around 100 miles of real-world range. It was also my only car. Now, I'm not suggesting everyone go out and buy a 100-mile EV today. I was experimenting. I lived in the city, had public charging nearby, family weren't hundreds of miles away, and if I really needed to, I had the public transport or my own 2 feet. The car suited my lifestyle. That's really the point I'm trying to make. It's very easy to convince yourself that you need 350 or 400 miles of range. But if your daily driving is 20 to 30 miles, do you actually need it? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Buy the range that fits your life, not the biggest number on the specification sheet.
Get to know the charging network. One thing I'd definitely recommend before buying an EV is spending a little time looking at what's available around you. Apps like ZapMap make this really easy. You can see where chargers are, how fast they are, and whether or not they're on routes you regularly travel. If you can charge at home, brilliant. In my opinion, that's still the best EV ownership experience. You simply plug in the car when you get home and wake up with a full battery. But even then, it's reassuring to know what's available if you ever need it. And if you're considering a second-hand EV with a smaller battery, understanding the charging network can completely change your perspective. You might discover that you can comfortably make journeys you assumed weren't possible. That could save you spending thousands more on a brand new EV with a huge battery that you simply don't need. Think differently when buying a used EV. This is probably the biggest difference compared to buying a petrol or diesel car. Traditionally, we're taught that lower mileage is always better. With an EV, it's a little bit more complicated. Mileage still matters, of course, but battery health matters too. A higher mileage EV that's been used regularly and looked after could actually be better than a low mileage car that spent years sitting fully charged. The way the battery has been treated is part of the picture. It's not just about what's showing on the odometer. If possible, I'd try to find out the battery's state of health or its usable battery capacity. Not every seller will have that information, and not every manufacturer makes it easy to find, but it's definitely worth asking. And don't panic if it isn't at 100%. Some battery degradation is completely normal. In fact, many batteries lose a small amount of capacity in their early years before the rate of degradation slows down. You're looking for a battery that's healthy for its age and mileage, not one that's perfect. Check what's still under warranty. Like any car, manufacturers have faults. The difference with an EV is that the battery and the drivetrain are some of the most expensive components. Fortunately, many manufacturers provide separate warranties for these parts, often lasting several years beyond the standard vehicle warranty. If you're buying used, I'd definitely check what's still covered. It's one more thing that can give you confidence when buying secondhand. Don't overlook the used market. This is something I've learned firsthand. When I bought my BMW iX, it actually cost me less than my Tesla Model 3 did brand new. That probably wouldn't have been the case when both cars were brand new, but depreciation has created some really interesting opportunities. So don't automatically assume that the newer car is the best value. Spend some time looking at the used market. You might be surprised what your budget can buy. Charging speed matters too. Battery sizes and everything. I'd also pay attention to charging speeds. Two cars with similar sized batteries can charge at very different rates. If most of your charging is at home overnight, that might not matter very much. But if you regularly do long journeys and rely on rapid charging, it can make a noticeable difference to your ownership experience. How do you make the switch? Something else worth thinking about is how you're actually going to transition to an EV. For some households, replacing the second car first makes perfect sense. It lets you experience EV ownership without giving up the flexibility of a petrol or diesel car. Interestingly, that's almost the opposite of what happened in our household. The EV gradually became the family car because it was simply the one that we wanted to use the most. Now the petrol car has become the second car. There's no right or wrong approach. It's simply about choosing what works best for your circumstances. The biggest thing I've learned over the last few years is that buying an EV isn't difficult. It's just different. You don't necessarily need the biggest battery. The lowest mileage car isn't automatically the best buy. Battery health matters. Charging infrastructure matters. And most importantly, your own lifestyle matters. There are now so many EVs available, especially on the used market, that for many people, replacing a petrol or diesel car isn't the real challenge anymore. The challenge is finding the EV that fits your life. Hopefully this has given you a few things to think about before making that decision. If you're already driving an EV, I'd love to know what advice you'd give someone buying their first one. And if you're still deciding, feel free to leave any questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.